All right, Bears mock draft 8.0. I call it our wildest mock draft yet because there's a lot going on in it, but it's one of my favorite ones so far. A lot of people commented on the last one that it's not realistic to take Jaden Daniels at 5. I agree with you 100%, full-heartedly. I put things out there sometimes because I read the comments that you guys have and I try different scenarios. I want to get people thinking about what could happen because we really don't know what Poles is going to do. There's a lot of things that indicate this or that or A or B or C or D, but we don't know. So this one I tried to focus on specifically what the Bears would do if I was Ryan Poles. If I was GM of the Chicago Bears, if I was Ryan Poles, what would I do? And I got thinking about a lot of different things. And at the very bottom, notice the free agents that are coming up in 2025. And whether you like Justin Fields or not, I'm making this one around what I would do. And I love Justin Fields. I've made that apparent on here. So let's say the Bears do his fifth-year option, which is about $22 million next year. They're still going to have salary cap coming up for him on an extension. And that's one of the biggest things you hear people talking about. It doesn't have to be salary cap hell. So what I'm going to focus on in this one, you'll see there's plenty of cap space when I'm done with it, even after the free agents and after the draft. We're going to hit quality free agents, and we're going to hit trading down in the draft to get quality value that fills all of our needs, that builds brick by brick, which is what Ryan Poles is known for and good at. So at the bottom, notice the three main free agents that are coming due. There's also Tevin Jenkins. I didn't put him on here because we don't know what's going to happen this next year with injuries. That could be a significant effect for him. But if you include him in there as well, that's $49 million. So there's some money coming up. There are contracts that end as well, and there's space that comes up. But here's our focus. After the draft and after our free agents, we're going to have $20 million in cap space. And what that does is it gives you flexibility this year if you want to create one of those extensions, say Jack Sanborn, because he's a very quality piece of this defense. He graded out higher than Tremaine Edmonds this last year. Is he better than Edmonds? Not necessarily, but he plays a valuable role on the Bears. So we don't want to let those things go. Khalil Herbert, maybe that running back position is something that is expendable, especially if we have high draft capital next year, the following years, because we've built this right, that we can draft a high caliber running back at the top of the draft, something the Bears usually don't have the luxury of. We usually don't even have the luxury of having a wide receiver draft at the top of the draft. But Ryan Poles is changing the culture. He's changing the way this team is built. So, what we looked at, we won't spend too much more time here. Jalen Johnson is a critical piece to get re-signed. Lloyd Cushenberry, I had someone correct me on his name. I've done so much research on him. Like, I know his game, and I know he's someone that I want, but it's crazy that I didn't have the EN in there. So, Lloyd Cushenberry, I got it corrected. The center from Denver, really would like him. I think he's quality to bring in here. Brock Wright is a tight end, as a backup tight end. He's got good hands. He needs a little work on the rest of his game, but he's got really good hands. When he's targeted by Jared Goff, Jared Goff's passer rating is above 100. I think it's like 115. So he's a quality piece. Matt Hennessy is another solid player who's been riddled by injury that we could get on a value contract to come in as a swing guard center backup role on a prove himself type of deal. If you want to look more into these guys, you can do that. We're not going to go full depth in this because this is supposed to be the mock draft. But the other pieces, Javon Kinlaw, he's had some down year. He hasn't graded the best, so he's a value, but he's high talent. So to bring him in at tackle, he's definitely an upgrade from Justin Jones, but it still gives us the ability to continue to work with Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter, which is what I think Ryan Poles will do. A lot of people have us going out and signing a huge name defensive tackle. I don't think that's realistic with two rookie defensive tackles. Now, are they home runs? We don't know yet, but you don't really draft two of them and then the very next draft another one or sign a big name free agent. That's not usually how it works. Billings is a staple. He's a rock right there in the middle. He's going to plug those holes. And then you've got the other two that you continue to work with this year and bring in quality to rotate in with it. And so that's the thinking there. Jalen Cole and Patrick Scales are special team signings just for quality and consistency on the team. And so that's what we have right there. So we're going to move on to the actual draft. And this has become my favorite scenario. As you know, had someone comment in the last one that it's not realistic to get 3 seconds and 1 spot trade down. Well, it is actually very realistic. But if you don't like that scenario, if you don't think Washington's going to be willing to give up both their seconds, which that is very true. They might not be willing to. The value is right, but they might not be willing to. Then the other value that compares to it would be giving up their first next year. So this might be the most realistic. And I think that is our most realistic trade partner, to be honest. So 1, 2, 241, and next year's first, and away we go with the Commanders pick. We do this well ahead of the draft, so we know what's coming, and then draft day arrives, and we end up trading way down. And we're going to do this to get value. So we trade down from 1-2 to 113 with the Raiders. And you'll see my scenario here in a minute. I'm actually going to show the top 20 picks in my draft. The Commanders actually end up taking Drake May. He's more quarterback-esque. He's more built for the NFL at 6'4" with a quarterback frame and body. He just isn't completely accurate or perfect in all the metrics, but he's a high-caliber quarterback in this draft. And if we go through the draft process in the combine, you're going to see different people scrutinize Drake May and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix, and they're all going to go through their scrutiny, and they're going to raise and drop and raise and drop. And you see Will Levis last year come all the way up into the second pick and the third pick, and then ends up going in the second round. Who knows what's going to happen? Nobody does. But if Caleb Williams, in my example here, is sitting at 2, I see the Raiders wanting to jump up and be willing to pay for it. And this is not a crazy value for it. This is less value than trading from 1 to 2 in what we got, but there's less quarterbacks and things available. We still have Marvin Harrison Jr. available at 3. So there would be a scramble and a fight for it. So this is appropriate valuation is what I'm getting at with that. We give up our second and our third next year, third round pick. But in return, we're getting first, second, third this year, 7th round pick as a little sweetener, and both first round picks in the next 2 years. Huge and appropriate valued. This is something that very well could happen. If someone's going to offer Poles this and he ends up trading from 1 to 13 and getting a swap ultimately of 1 to 13 and 3 additional first round picks, I think he may do it. He absolutely might. So with that, the 9th overall pick, you're going to see Joe Alt drop. Now this may not happen. It may happen, but there is a lot of buzz right now about the top of the draft being very weapon-centric, being wide receivers and quarterbacks. And this is something that absolutely could happen. And if Joe Alt falls to us at 9, I do not see the Bears passing on him. I don't see tackle being our priority. And you'll know that from the video I released on Friday, my positional overview, that's not my priority is to go out and get a tackle. But when you have Joe Alt drop to you at number 9, you don't pass up on it. So Joe Alt would be our pick at number 9. And then at number 13, pardon my technical difficulties, Laiatu Latu, defensive end out of UCLA, my favorite defensive end. So this is how I have the top 16 shaking out in the draft. First, Washington would get Drake May. Second, Raiders would get Caleb Williams. Then the Patriots are going to pass up on a Marvin Harrison Jr. And a lot of people think we should trade 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. But you don't know if the Patriots are going to trade 3 to 2 just to get Marvin Harrison Jr. And the Patriots don't trade very often. So this, to me, is the most realistic take of what could happen if it falls this way. They would take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3rd and sign a veteran quarterback. Then at that point, Arizona isn't as interested in staying put because Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone, and the Falcons trade up and get Jaden Daniels at the 4th spot. The Chargers very, very much need a tight end. Brock Bowers would go at 5. Malik Neighbors at 6 to the Giants. Olu Fashanu, the Titans. Now, this could be Joe Alt, but Olu Fashanu fits their type of system a little bit better. Well, that's not easy to say because Joe Alt could fit any system, but I have seen several drafts where the Titans want Olu Fashanu, and it's not unrealistic, so we're running with it. Arizona then takes Rome Odunze at 9. And with that happening, with all those quarterbacks and wide receivers, tight end going off the board in the top of the draft, you get Joe Alt at 9. And J.C. Latham to the Jets at 10, Jared Verse to the Vikings at 11, Michael Penix to the Broncos at 12, and we snag Laiatu Latu and the Dallas Turner to the Saints at 14, Cooper DeJean, who I think is the best cornerback in this draft, to the Colts, one of the most talented players in the draft, to be honest, and then Jerzon Newton to the Seahawks at 16. And that's how I have the top 16 shaking out right now in my mock draft. All right, then here is what makes it the wildest mock draft yet. The Bears successfully trade up from 241 to 127 and 235 with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the reason that we can do this is because we have that first-round pick, and the Cardinals also traded back from 4 to 8 and picked up additional draft capital, and they have an extra second-round pick and an extra pick next year for their trade in the second or third round. And we are giving them a first-round pick, so Arizona is also building to the future the same way the Bears are, and they're willing to give up one of those picks and a little bit of a swap on the other one for a future first-round pick, and this math adds up too. There's less and less value as you go up, but this is still a $300 to $400 overpay. And at this point in the first and second round, that's actually very realistic about what the overpay would be. So the Bears are going to pick up 2 more picks, give up next year's first-round pick. And when teams do this, they usually give up their own first-round pick. And they're not going to give up Washington or Las Vegas's because they're banking on themselves to be the best of those picks. So the Bears are going to give away our own first-round pick, saying we're going to win the Super Bowl, so we're not giving the other picks away. We're going to give our own pick away, and that's usually what they do is they bank on themselves. All right, so now we have 2 more picks, one in the first round and one in the early second round, and you know where I'm going with this. The Bears pick with the 27th overall pick, Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota. To me, he is it at safety. That's exactly who we want. Now at 36, a lot of you are going to like this. I love this. He's becoming one of my absolute favorite players, Xavier Legette. Right now, he's projected for the 40s. If he had more consistency and if he had more college resume, he would absolutely be going in the first round. Right now, some people projecting him to go to the first round. And after the combine, after different things take place leading up to it with his size and his escapability and his speed, he runs a sub-4 340. He absolutely could go in the first round. But this is exactly where I project him to go, and which is why I want the Bears to get a very early second-round pick. I want them to snag him. Xavier Legette, wide receiver, our new X-receiver. All right, then the 73rd pick, the Bears are going to pick Zach Zinter. Consensus first-team All-American, injured though, broke his leg, and he's going to be recovering, so he might not be available for a good portion of the season. But that's what fits the Bears perfectly, is you've got this guy who you hear about stories from the national championship and about how he was critical in rallying the team, and he's a big support to the locker room. Like, that's the type of guys the Bears go after. That's the type of guys we want. But on top of that, you've got Nate Davis in a contract that he's not killing right now. He's not really living up to what we're paying him, but we can't get out of it this year. So you've got Nate Davis there, and then you bring a guy in that has time to heal. You're not rushing back his healing from his injury, and then he can build that experience at the end of the year and come in and possibly make a big impact as he gets better. That's a huge recipe for stealing this pick at the 73rd pick, when if he was healthy, he would probably go in the mid-second round. So this, to me, is a great pickup for the Bears. We want him. I've put him in several of my drafts. I'm going to stay consistent with this one. This is one I see riding out to the end of all of them. All right, with our compensatory pick from Ian Cunningham being hired, the Bears are going to draft Audric Estime, running back out of Notre Dame. Then the Bears are going to trade down their 111th to get more draft capital. This is a polls type of move to get more value, to get more picks. And that's what we're focusing on in this draft, is really critically picking up exactly what we need, where we need it, and how we need it to build this roster to give it a chance for a run this year and build value for the future. So we're going to get 119 and 154. Again, the math all lines up, guys. We're going to get Cade Stover, tight end out of Ohio State. I talked a lot about him. We're going to go through this a little quicker. If you want to look more into stuff, check out some of my old stuff. And the same with Darius Robinson. With our pick we got from the Eagles from last year's trade from 9 to 10, we have an extra 4th-round pick. Darius Robinson's my guy from Missouri. I love him as well. All right, here's a new one to my mock drafts, and a guy that I'm falling in love with, and that's Malik Washington, wide receiver out of West Virginia, and he fits the slot receiver role perfectly. 660 of his 700-some-odd snaps at receiver this last year were taken from the slot, and he had over a 90 PFF grade on all of those snaps. He is elusive, he runs routes crisply, and once he gets the ball, he's hard to catch. I think you'll like him. He is very valued at this position, and it would be a steal to me to get him here. But sometimes teams don't want to go for those 5'8", 194-pound guys. And then with the 6th-round pick we pick up later on, we're going to pick up a guy who's climbing boards and is getting some notoriety, a Division III wide receiver who is a solid X receiver to bring in maybe this year's Puka Nacua. I don't know. We'll find out. He's got solid hands. He never, ever drops the ball. His receiving grades are all off the chart, but this is Division III. So it's the same type of thing as Braxton Jones and some of these other guys that you hear about. Is their grade really that high, or is it lower competition? And he's worth taking a flyer on in the 7th round, absolutely 100%. So I like this pick. Hayden Hatton, wide receiver, Idaho. He just killed it at the Hula Bowl and did a great job there. So here's our draft. Joe Alt, Leatu Latu, Tyler Nubin, Xavier Legette, Zach Zinter, Audric Estime, Cade Stover, Darius Robinson, Malik Washington, and Hayden Hatton. I got my 3 wide receivers, but again, guys, we shouldn't expect the world out of those 5th and 7th round wide receivers. But when you're going out and snagging guys, and after you've already gotten your 2nd-round receiver in Xavier Legette, there's a lot of possibility there. So this is my favorite one. You wanted to see a mock draft that I would do? This is a mock draft that I would do. It also gives us draft capital for the future. Yes, our own 1st-round pick is gone, but now we're playing with house money from Vegas and Washington. Let's root for both of them this year to tank, just like we rooted for Carolina to do that. And the thing is, yes, Washington ended high. Washington has some potential, but when teams have rookie quarterbacks, they tend to struggle. Don't look at C.J. Stroud as the example. They did it the right way by building the way the Bears are building right now. That's why C.J. Stroud was able to come in and plug and play so easily, is because they built so many strong weapons around him. We can have a whole nother conversation on that, and you've heard me say some things about that topic. C.J. Stroud aired out so many Hail Marys, it's not even funny. His bad pass rate was one of the worst in the league. Passes that shouldn't have been completed that potentially were, or passes that were just bad. They were some bad ones. I am not saying at all he's a bad quarterback. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's definitely a starter in the league, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. But with those weapons around him, going up and being able to pluck Hail Marys out of the sky and give him 70 yards on multiple passing attempts, it absolutely helped him out quite a bit. The Bears could be in a similar position. But Vegas and Washington could struggle in those first years. We still have our own pick next year, and we have Carolina's pick that we had for the trade from last year, from trading down from the 1st and getting DJ Moore. We don't have our 3rd anymore because we included it to get an extra 1st-rounder, but we do have the comp pick from Ian Cunningham for 1 more year. And we still have our 4th and our 5th, and the 6th from Miami for Chase Claypool. It's a solid future. And we've built up this year as well. So with that, let's look at our offense. One change that you see in here is I do have an undrafted free agent as the 3rd-string quarterback. I like developing the quarterbacks, but in my angle on this one, after looking at the last mock draft, saying, okay, what do I really want? Well, I want Justin Fields. And Tyson Bagent is a quality backup. Is he starter material? No. Anybody who says that is writing craziness through their mind, but it's okay. They have the ability to do that, and I think he has potential to absolutely continue to improve and progress. But he wasn't blowing anybody's socks off this year, but he is smart. He's intelligent. He studies. He works hard. He's just what the Bears like, just like Justin Fields. 1st one in, last one out, putting the time in, and a quality team guy. Gunnar Watson, to me, is a guy, I'm not going to go over him on this one because he wasn't a draft pick, but check him out. He's a 5th-year senior. He's got a lot of experience from a Division III school as well, very much like Tyson Bagent, and he's got a lot of measurables that are really nice. So if you want to pick an undrafted free agent up, he's a good one. In the tight end room, we have Cole Kmet and Cade Stover as our picks. We picked up Brock Wright in free agency. On the offensive line, Lloyd Cushenberry, to me, is the biggest piece of this to fix things. Matt Hennessy, the free agent that's had injury concerns, to me is a huge upgrade as well for a backup guard center. Ja'Tyre Carter needs to sit on the bench constantly and never come off the bench. And then we have Zach Zinter coming back from injury, and Tevin Jenkins has been very reliable, but the concern is injury. So when you have Zach Zinter there and Matt Hennessy able to come in and fill in, it just makes things a lot better. Bookend tackles are now elite of the elite. You've got Darnell Wright and Joe Alt with Braxton Jones as a swing tackle. I can't think of anything I would like more than that situation right there. On to the wide receivers, you've got DJ Moore with Xavier Legette as an X receiver on the other side. Tyler Scott with potential to continue to improve and grow. I like Tyler Scott a lot. I just think he hasn't adapted to the NFL yet. This will be a big year to see what he can do. Malik Washington is a stellar slot receiver, and Velus Jones, to me, is that Cordarrelle Patterson type of guy in the backfield, taking some backfield snaps, getting some 5-10 yard burst runs off of his speed. I think that would be great. And then Hayden Hatton is the wild card. You've got an extra guy. We're not going to re-sign Equinemius St. Brown on this one. Hayden Hatton is a solid blocker. He's got big size, and he can come in and make some amazing catches. If you watch anything from him from his time at Idaho or even the Hula Bowl, just barely, there's good things to see on him. Then we add Audric Estime as a running back. All right, onto the defense. Montez Sweat and Liatu Latu bookending. DeMarcus Walker can come in on some different sets for the defense. Dominic Robinson to me is on thin ice. He's on borrowed time here. I don't see him doing much. I'd see Darius Robinson getting more splits at defensive end than Dominic Robinson, and I love that option as well. Javon Kinlaw coming in to provide depth with Andrew Billings and Gervon Dexter. I see starting and rotating a lot with Javon Kinlaw, and then Zach Pickens getting some time rotating with Billings and Dexter as well. In the secondary, we re-signed Jalen Johnson, which is huge. Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Tyler Nubin, and Jaquan Brisker. There is no better secondary in the league, in my opinion, than that right there. And then there's still quality backups. Linebackers didn't really change. Special teams didn't change. That is, to me, the ideal mock draft so far. Mock Draft 8.0. Let me know your thoughts on it. I really like this one. If you're going to ask me which mock I like and which one I would take, this is what I would take. But is it realistic to have Joe Alt fall to us at 9? I don't know. We'll find out. I think it's highly possible with how much top-end capital there is at the top of this draft. It's definitely possible. Is it going to happen? Probably not. I'm realistic. Probably not. He's probably going to go in the 6 to 8 range, maybe even 5. And realistically, Brock Bowers probably won't go in the top 10. But if I want to see how my draft is going to go, what I want to see happen, this is it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for following me. I really enjoyed how this has started out. If you haven't subscribed yet, why haven't you? Just push that button. Just subscribe. You get to see my stuff that's coming out. We've started the new series with the Bears analysis of each position and what I would do, and it's going to lead up ultimately, once I'm done with those, to a final mock draft as the preseason begins, as the new season begins in March with free agent signings. We'll have more coverage then. We're going to do a lot of things between now and then. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for hitting subscribe. Thank you for liking. Until next time, bear down.